Lindsay Adler.
And I'm Chris Knight, and today Profoto has challenged us with the concept of one hard light reflector and the theme of
this year's Pantone color of the year, Viva Magenta. And Chris and I love these sorts of challenges because you get to watch two photographers take a similar theme and have totally different results.
So stay tuned and see which one you like better.
It's gonna be me.
Probably will.
I'm gonna put you maybe here. For my one light setup, I am going to use a modifier that I have never used before. It's called a narrow beam reflector. So I did a little research, and what's special about this is depending on where you zoom it on the strobe head itself, you can get a really wide coverage of light or really narrow, just like the name suggests. Because this is one light, I may want something in between because I also need to illuminate that background. We've got a red background, a beautiful red outfit, and then I'm going to add another little creative element into the mix. By the way, the narrow beam reflector gives me really hard light, which is going to extremely emphasize her cheekbone and jawline, which is another reason why we have it at such a high angle. So let me show you what we're working with so far. Okay, perfect. And then give me an arm cross, beautiful. All right, so she looks gorgeous, but you can already tell that this red isn't the right red. And so when I'm shooting, I shoot tethered and I make adjustments in Capture One. And so one thing that I may do to help me visualize things is that I'll go down to the color editor and I'll start adjusting these reds because Viva Magenta isn't just pink or just red, it's kind of in between the two. And so I can grab my reds, I can darken them down, making them a little richer. I can pop up the saturation a little bit, and I can adjust the hue to make them go a little bit more pink. And by the way, there's a lot more fine tuning that I can do to make this the exact Viva Magenta, but this is just more for me to visualize, and we'll fix the rest in the end. Okay, so got the beautiful light, got the beautiful color, and now time for one creative addition. We're going to add a gel into the scene, but not in a way you would usually think. Chris, would you help me out with this? Chris is going to hold this gel in between the light and the subject. Some of the light is going to pass through, which will give her almost a swath, like a painting of light across her face. We can change the angle and the distance, and each time we do, it's going to give us a different creative result. So let me show you what it looks like conceptually. All right, perfect. Great. So that looks great. The beautiful hard light on her face, I love the way that it's washing out the color, so it's just all about red, hard light, poppy, everything that I love. So now I'm gonna get the shot. So we have a ton of beautiful shots of our model and a lot of creative variation. So I think this one's going to be pretty hard to beat. So let's go over and watch Chris bring his one light shot to life.
So for my one light setup, we're going in a very different direction. We're going something with a lot moodier, a lot more dramatic, and maybe a little bit more cinematic. I love the idea of kind of crafting complicated light and telling some interesting stories, but we are going to be a little creative with the idea of one light a little bit. So I like shooting in environments a lot and creating light that is really complicated and unique to the space. So that is what we're doing today. We're taking this seemingly normal corridor and we're transforming it into something very dark and very moody. And we're doing this with one light, but we're utilizing a lot of different surfaces for reflections and reflectors to create complexity. We are starting with no lights being on whatsoever, which is kind of key to this. So when I want to shape light in a space, I try to shut down as many lights as I can. Very good. Now you will see in the background there are still some hallway lights left on, and this is kind of us being a little bit creative. I'm actually lighting our subject with one light, but I am going to keep some lights on in the background just to give myself a little bit of depth. But I'm going to turn my white balance all the way up to full warmth, and I'm going to turn it all the way up to full magenta. My one light is going to be B10 Plus with a reflector and some barn doors to shape the light a little bit. This is going to kind of come in from behind a little bit, and it's going to create really this beautiful rim light on her face. Now, it is also being pointed at this wall, and so even though the barn doors do close down a little bit, I have added a flag next to it to really try to cut as much light as possible from this white wall behind her, just to shape the light a little bit more. To make it wrap around a little bit more, which makes it look a little bit more beautiful in my opinion, a little bit more complex, I'm gonna bring in a silver reflector to the front, which is going to swivel around and bounce some of that blue light to the front part of her face. Now, when I'm ready to photograph her, it's going to create something that feels a little bit more wrapped around. This sets me up here compositionally, but to make it feel a little bit more cinematic, add some narrative to it, I am going to introduce my second actor, who is going to stand in the background with a flashlight. I know it's an extra light, but it's not really lighting anything. To make that flashlight show up, we've added a haze machine, which adds a nice kind of volumetric sense to the light, makes all the light show up and really makes everything feel a little bit more cinematic. So with all of this in place, let's go ahead and start shooting. So just to recap what we've done here today is we started with a mostly unlit space. We've had a magenta white balance to the scene, and then I've added, to offset that, a blue gelled light with barn doors. I've shaped it using flags and reflectors to create something beautifully complex, and I hope you like the shots.
We hope you've enjoyed a peek behind the scenes of our shoots and our creative process.
But the important thing to remember that even though you might have a favorite, there's not necessarily an objective winner. Everybody has different approaches and different styles, and it's all about what speaks to you personally.
So, that being said, if you did have a favorite, let us know in the comments which one you prefer and why. And of course, we recommend that you check out the links in the description below because we have links to all of the gear we use in the making of these images. See you next time, guys.
See you later.